Shri Swaminarayan Bhagavanani Jai. Akshara Purushottam Maharajani Jai. Gunatitananda Swami Maharajani Jai. Guru Hari Pramukh Swami Maharajani Jai. Guru Hari Mahant Swami Maharajani Jai. Namaste and Jai Swaminarayan. Welcome to the second part of the BAPS Betterliving series presentation titled Developing a Spiritual Attitude. In the first part, we talked about the impact of negative beliefs and then identifying our negative thoughts and emptying our minds of negativity. How? By filling our minds with positive thoughts. Today, we will look at two more important points in developing a spiritual attitude. The first is enriching our minds with a spiritual attitude and how the Guru shows us the pathway to a spiritual attitude. Firstly, enriching our minds with a spiritual attitude. So, we must accept the fact that as long as we have selfishness and ego in our lives, we will continue to go back and forth between positivity and negativity, ups and downs, successes and failures. And so, attaining a sense of fulfillment or satisfaction or content or even joy and happiness will be a distant reality. Now, to experience happiness on an everyday basis and to attain inner satisfaction, fulfillment, we do need a spiritual attitude. And it is this spiritual attitude that teaches us the ability to become selfless, more forgiving, more loving, more caring, more embracing. And in the world, there's this misconception that spirituality should be practiced or embraced in the later years of our lives. Instead, people say to us that you must focus on your career or your education or on your business or even on your family life. But in reality, spirituality, it gives us the ability to extract our highest potential in our education, in our jobs, in the careers or the businesses or even in family life. It actually provides us with the emotional agility that we need so desperately to become really successful in achieving our goals in life. In fact, it is an eternal truth that spirituality and faith in God can fill the deep, empty spaces of our minds and hearts and take us beyond the daily ups and downs of life that we experience. Bhagavan Buddha, he has very nicely said, just as a candle cannot burn without fire, human beings cannot live without a spiritual life. According to Buddha, we cannot live without spirituality. And when we do try to live without spirituality, all it does is that it creates more hurt, more pain, more misery, and unhappiness. Let us try and understand this with an example of Shri Ram Bhagavan. Now, the day of his coronation as the king of Ayodhya was a very jubilant day, a day of celebration, not just for him, but for the whole of Ayodhya. Everything was ready, the pomp, the enthusiasm was tremendous. And then suddenly, Shri Ram receives news that he is to be banished to the forests and his brother Bharat would take care of Ayodhya as the future king. No doubt, the news came as a devastating blow for everybody in Ayodhya. Now, let us see how a spiritual attitude can make a difference in the way we approach such situations. Since you and I live in a negative world, a material approach would be full of negativity. Thoughts like, I will fight for my rights. I am the rightful child of Dashrath, and I have the right to be the king. I will confront Bharat. I will attack him. I will make sure he cannot rule this city. These are the thoughts that a person with a worldly attitude would have. And what does that bring? All it brings is discomfort, misery. But for a person with a spiritual approach, it brings positivity. It brings content. It brings more fulfillment and peace. And that's exactly what Shri Ram did. He heartily accepted his duty of following what his elders said. He honestly respected his forefathers and their every single decision. He genuinely absorbed the unpleasant situation, and he lovingly overcame everything with a smile. And happily, he went into the forests with Sita Mata and Lakshmanji. Not a single word and not a single ill thought. In doing so, we see that Shri Ram, he carried the love and respect, the hearts and the thoughts of every single person in the whole city of Ayodhya with him wherever he went. Not only that, he remained ever happy, very joyous, despite the most terrible events that happened in the 14 years of exile. So how did Shri Ram do this? He did this because he had a sound and strong spiritual attitude. And this is a lesson that has been taught down generations to us for eons. Honestly, when we think of such spiritual personalities, they readily transform us from within, only if we understand and imbibe their lives properly. Even today, we learn that great, famous, and intelligent people, they have also understood the value and the need of a spiritual attitude in life, and they also live it. Mrs. Indira Nooyi, an Indian business executive and the former chairperson and chief executive officer, CEO of PepsiCo, who has also been consistently ranked as one of the 20 most powerful women in the world. In an interview with Hinduism Today, she cited that her Hindu faith was the source of solace from the storms of guilt and stress. She said, "There are times when the stress is so incredible between the office and home, trying to be a wife, a mother of 2 daughters, a daughter-in-law, and a corporate executive." She goes on to say, "Then you close your eyes and think about a temple like Tirupati, and suddenly you feel, hey, I can take on the whole world." Hinduism, its beliefs and spirituality, they float around you and they make you feel somehow invincible. Absolutely perfect. Steph Curry, the American professional basketball player who plays for the Golden State Warriors in the NBA, and he plays the point guard position, and analysts and players have called him one of the greatest shooters in NBA history. Steph, who is also a 2-time consecutive MVP winner, he stated during his MVP speeches that God was the primary factor in his success, and that he himself tries to faithfully follow God's will. Now, you may be surprised, even that, along with him hosting a Bible study group with other male athletes through daily group text messaging, and he has explained that there's a deep connection with the players of his team, and by them all attending church together and sharing inspiration in their beliefs, they have become much, much more stronger. Again, the need of spiritual attitude lived in life. One of the world's most powerful scientists today, Mr. Francis Collins, who was the winner of the 2020 Templeton Prize and is currently the director of the National Institutes of Health, what they call the NIH. In his interview with John Horgan, he was asked by John that, Francis, do you believe in miracles? And Francis replied, in my own experiences as a physician, I have not seen a miraculous healing, and I don't expect to see one. To me, prayer is not a way to manipulate God into doing what I want Him to do. Prayer for me is much more of a sense of deepening a personal fellowship with God. He then goes on to say, I do what I should be doing rather than telling the Almighty God what He should be doing. Look at the Lord's Prayer. It says, Thy will be done. It wasn't, Our Father who art in heaven, please get me a parking space. Sounds funny, but the belief, the spiritual attitude that Francis has in his life, very clear of what he wants to attain. Now, hearing these experiences, it is very evident that we all need to look towards finding this spiritual attitude, making it stronger. This will undoubtedly keep us grounded. It'll give us continuous strength. It'll keep us more hopeful. And eventually, through time, joy and happiness will be ours. Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, the former President of India and a world-renowned scientist, he met His Holiness Pramukh Sai Maharaj in New Delhi on the 30th of June 2001. Dr. Kalam, he presented to Pramukh Sai Maharaj the ideas of Vision 2020, and he said to Swamiji that, Swamiji, India has had two great visions in modern times. One in 1857 for independence, which then became a reality 90 years later, and the other in 1950, that's after independence, that the nation should evolve. These are the two visions that India had. Now, our next vision, Swamiji, is to transform India from a developing country to a developed country within the next 30 years. So, he says, we have identified 5 important areas for transforming India. The first, he said to Swami Shri, was education and healthcare. The second, he said, was agriculture. The third, he said, was information and communication. The fourth was infrastructure. And the fifth was critical technology. After revealing these 5 visions, he said to Swami Shri, we have come here for your advice. Please advise us. Pramukh Sai Maharaj had listened very attentively and then gave him a smile, and Pramukh Sai Maharaj said, along with your 5 areas to transform India, you need to add a 6th one. Faith in God and developing people through spirituality. Pramukh Sai Maharaj went on to say, this is very, very important for the progress and development of our nation. Only then will your dream of fulfilling a transformed India into a developed India, will that vision come true. Dr. Kalam was deeply impressed with Pramukh Sai Maharaj's guidance of keeping faith in God and spirituality as the base of the Vision 2020 plan to transform India. Again, it is very clear from what we've just heard over the last 5-7 minutes is that without a spiritual attitude in life, attaining constant joy or happiness or satisfaction or progress or success or even fulfillment, all this is like a blind man in a dark room looking for a black cat that is not there. Meaning, it is literally impossible. Then how can we develop a spiritual attitude? The Guru shows the pathway to developing a spiritual attitude. Now, to develop a perfect spiritual attitude, we need a true and enlightened Guru. A spiritual teacher who himself is free from inner darkness, from negativity, who is eternally blissful, who is pure, who is one with God. Only he can show us the pathway to outer light, to positivity and everlasting happiness, because it is the Guru who holds our hand through the challenges and ups and downs of life, and he instills a deep spiritual attitude. The lives of His Holiness Pramukh Swami Maharaj and His Holiness Mahanta Swami Maharaj, they inspire us to go from an outward perspective to looking inward and developing a spiritual perspective and a spiritual attitude. During the Cultural Festival of India celebrations in New Jersey in 1991, Pramukh Swami Maharaj, he met two doctors, Dr. Neville Hacker and Dr. John Monaghan. After an exchange of introductions, Swami Shri, as Pramukh Swami Maharaj was affectionately known by, Swami Shri, he naturally asked the two doctors, "Do you pray to God?" The doctors said, "We don't believe in God, but we believe in service to mankind, we serve society, and we save lives." Swami Shri then said, "Sometimes when you are performing your operation and if you fail, faith in God will ensure you don't get depressed." The doctors responded, "But Swamiji, we hardly fail." Then Swami Shri very lovingly said to the two doctors, "If you succeed all the time and you believe in God, then you will never become egoistic. Remember, faith in God saves you from depression in failure, and it stops you from becoming arrogant in success. Faith in God is important to keep a healthy mind, a happy heart, and a very fulfilled soul." Great perspective. Both doctors were extremely happy. They thanked Pramukh Swami Maharaj for showing them this perspective in life that they had never truly thought about, but it opened their minds. Once a question was asked to Pramukh Swami Maharaj by a newspaper reporter. The question was that, what is the secret behind your greatness? And what is the secret behind all these achievements? Pramukh Swami Maharaj, he responded by saying, "The grace of my Guru and God. Without their grace, one cannot become great or successful. There is only one reason and only one secret, the singular goal of earning God's blessings. If God is pleased, then we progress. If He is not pleased, then there is no trace of progress nor happiness." We can see that Pramukh Swami Maharaj was not focused on the result. He was always totally focused on his passion, as we heard from his answer, to do only that which pleases God and my Guru. A devotee who had come from India to settle in America, he was going through a tough time and had not seen any success or any progress in his businesses or even the multiple jobs that he had taken on in the 15-20 years that he was here. So, with advice and exchanging thoughts with other people and friends and relatives, he made a financial plan. And this financial plan, he thought, was good enough for him to achieve success. So he presented this plan to Mahanta Swami Maharaj, saying to Swamiji that, "Swami, if I do as I have planned, I will surely become successful and I will definitely progress in life here in America. Mahan Swami Maharaj, who had attentively seen the plan and heard him well, he just asked him one question. That though we are blessing you, have you made a plan to progress spiritually with piety, righteousness, and faith in God? This will only truly give you success in life. Now, from both gurus we understand that they illuminate our lives by providing us with the correct attitude and perspectives, with a spiritual attitude. And it is this spiritual attitude, deeply rooted in the Hindu scriptures and teachings, that the Guru he shares with the world. And it is absolutely necessary that we understand that we really need to have this in our lives if we really want to remain unfazed, unperturbed during the challenges and ups and downs of life. Friends, today is like yesterday, and the day before, and the weeks, and the months, and the years, and the decades, and the centuries before. It just comes and it goes. But we must make a strong resolve that we want to discard our negative attitude and enrich our life with a positive and a spiritual attitude. Remember that we are determinants of our own choices. With a spiritual attitude, we can determine appropriate decisions that will help us remain constant in any type of outcome or situation. It will then allow us to make space in our lives, emotionally, mentally, and even physically. For who? For God, for our Guru, and even for our loved ones. In doing so, we can attain ultimate happiness and joy on a daily basis, and that too for the rest of our lives. So let us pray to Bhagwan Swaminarayan, Guru Hari Pramukh Swami Maharaj and Guru Hari Mahan Swami Maharaj, that we can gain strength to spend at least 10 to 15 minutes daily to slow down, empty our minds, remove the negative thoughts, fill them with positive thoughts, and fulfill our lives by enriching our minds with a spiritual attitude. This will, no doubt, allow you and me to live and breathe the joy and happiness that we so desperately crave for. Jai Swaminarayan.